Hi, this is Mrs. Nandor, and today we're going to be looking at kind of three topics in this video. We're going to look at some definitions, we're going to look at units for measurement, and we're going to look at metric prefixes. So let's start with definitions. Our first definition we're going to look at is the definition of chemistry. Chemistry is the study of matter and how it changes. So matter is the stuff that makes up our world. Everything is made up of matter. And we all know that matter changes. And so the study of chemistry is, what is that matter? What does it do? What does it look like? What are its different components? How is it different? What are its properties? And then we're really looking at how it changes. So what happens when you change different types of variables? So that's the study of chemistry. When we study chemistry, we look at two major components a lot. And the first is mass. Mass is a measure of the amount of matter. So if we have more matter, we're going to have a greater mass. If you have less matter, you're going to have a lower or less mass. We also look at volume a lot, and volume is a measure of the amount of space that matter occupies. So both of these are measuring matter. Chemistry is the study of matter. These are two ways that we can measure matter. It's either the amount, which is mass, or the amount, or how much space it takes up, which is volume. So mass is the amount of matter. Volume is the amount of space the matter takes up. So let's look at our units for measuring these things. When we measure mass, our primary unit is going to be grams. The symbol for grams is a lowercase g. When we measure volume, there are two primary ways that we can measure volume. We can measure volume in liters, and the symbol for liters is an L, capital L. Or we can measure in meters, meters cubed. And so that would be a lowercase m with a cube. And later we're going to talk about why you'd use one over the other, but there are two ways that you can measure volume. You can measure volume in liters, you can also measure volume in meters cubed. Not tied to mass or volume, but something else that we measure a lot is length. And we can measure length in meters. Symbol for meters is a lowercase f. Now, we're not just going to use just grams, just liters, so on and so forth, all the time. We have things called metric prefixes that can adjust the scale of these measurements. So there are lots of metric prefixes, but we're going to focus on three specifically. So we have kilo, we have centi, and we have milli. So these are prefixes, so they're words that would go in front of your units. So if our unit is grams, we would have kilograms. If we had meters, we would have centimeters or millimeters. We'd have milliliters, so on and so forth. So they're prefixes, so they're parts that get attached to the front of your unit. Now, here is where our base unit goes. And let's just say our base unit is X. Kilo is much bigger than our base unit. So a kilogram or a kiloliter is considerably bigger than a gram or a liter. So the symbol for this would be lowercase k, and then whatever your base unit is. So it would be kg, kl, depending on what you're looking at. Km for kilometer. Kilo is 1,000 times bigger than the base, which means that there are 1,000 of our base units in one of our kilo units. So if you have a kilometer, kilometer is 1,000 meters. So meters is our base unit. Kilo means that it's 1,000 times bigger. So we have 1,000 meters in our kilometer. If we look at centi and milli are both smaller than our base unit. So the symbol for centi is a lowercase c. So it would be c and then whatever our base unit is, so x. So if it's grams, it'd be cg. If it's meters, it'd be cm for centimeters. These are much smaller. These are 100 times smaller. So it'd be x divided by 100. So if we have a meter, there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter because centimeters are smaller than meters. Milli is also smaller. The symbol for milli is a lowercase m. And so if it's with our base unit, it would be m and then whatever our base unit is. So it'd be mg, mm, ml, depending on what we're measuring. And millis are 1,000 times smaller than our base unit. So there are 1,000 milliliters in a liter. There are 1,000 millimeters in a meter. There are 1,000 milligrams in a gram. So those are the three main metric prefixes that we're going to use. Depending on your size of whatever you're measuring is going to determine whether you use just your base unit or whether you use centi, milli, or kilo. For instance, we wouldn't measure distances between houses using millimeters. That would be ridiculous. We'd have tons of millimeters. So it makes a lot more sense to measure distances using kilometers or kilometers. So that's where our metric prefixes come in.